like to welcome everyone to the Fall River Conservation Commission meeting for March 11, 2019 at One Government Center, Fall River, Mass, in room 508B. Pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made whether perceived or unperceived by those present and are deemed acknowledged and permissible. First on the agenda is a notification from National Grid submitted February 13, 2019 regarding geotechnical investigation activities N12 and M13 115 kV transmission lines. Mr. Roth?
This is just a standard National Grid notification regarding the that they're required to give us under the Wetlands Protection Act. It doesn't require any other action. Just we can place it on file. I believe we can place it in with current RDA determination of applicability that authorized the work. And this is just further clarification for what they're doing. So I recommend to accept it and place it on file in the RDA file.
So I have a motion to recommend to place the matter on file.
Make a motion to put the matter on file on the RDA.
And seconded by Reverend Hornsby. All in favor?
Aye.
So voted. But two on the request is for a determination of applicability filed by Paul Phil, Deputy Administrator of the Community Utilities regarding building demolition and site electrical upgrade project located at 1979 Bay Street, Assessors Map A14-2, file RDA 162. Mr. Phil?
Good evening, Commission. Paul Furlan, Deputy Administrator of Community Utilities. I have here with me CDM Smith, who is our design consultant for this project. We're currently moving into contract number 1 of upgrades of the wastewater treatment facility. The wastewater treatment facility was originally constructed in the 40s. There was upgrades done in the 70s and 2000s. We're at a point now where a fair majority of the plant is from the 70s, and those areas need to be upgraded. This contract 1, I'll give you a brief overview just to the construction end of it, and we can get into some of the technicals related to the Conservation Commission, but we're going to be demolishing a incinerator building that hasn't been used since we had to shut it down in 2016 due to new air quality regulations. We're going to be installing new electrical service into the facility, as well as feeds from that new electrical service to pretty much most of the buildings on our site. The site is right on the edge of the bay, so there is we are within the floodplains of some areas. So any of the anything that this board has to do with the Conservation Commission would be within that floodplain in that area, which is limited on the scope of what we're doing in those areas. So if CDM would like, they can
Hello, my name is Danielle Gallant. I'm with CDM Smith. I'm an environmental scientist, so I'm here.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Oh, my name is Danielle Gallant. I'm with CDM Smith, as Paul had mentioned. And just to give you a quick overview of the work that is within jurisdiction of the CONCOM, excuse me. So this is a general site overlook. This is the bay here. And so these sheets that we'll be looking at tonight show work that's happening at the driveway, the State Street driveway, access driveway to the site, as well as some work that's happening at the pedestrian walkway. It's electrical conduit installation. When I reviewed the site, I did a desktop analysis, and I found that obviously there's the bay and the land subject to coastal storm flowage that's associated with the bay. There's the coastal bank, and then there's a fringe of salt marsh that's indicated by the Mass DEP wetlands layer right on the edge of the bay here. Sorry if you can't
Nope.
see.
I looked at them.
So this first sheet here gives us a look at the work that's proposed at this State Street access driveway. There's some widening, it's approximately 3 feet of widening that's occurring at this access driveway, just the intersection, it's not occurring down the whole street. And the reason for that is so that it can be a secondary tractor trailer access to the site when needed, when other parts of the site are under construction and access is not available through the primary location. So over here, you'll see this hatching here will show you the proposed paving, and really some of it, like here and right here, is actually like rehabilitation of pavement that used to be at that location but has since worn away. Additionally, you'll see this area over here is a large paved parking lot. This is the bay. This is the approximate location of where some of that salt marsh is located. And so I just put on the approximate 100-foot buffer zone of that salt marsh so that you can see that the contractor material storage area will be in this parking lot. It's within the 100-foot buffer, but like I mentioned, it's a paved area. They're just going to be placing materials and moving to and from that area.
What are your containment methods for that area? Because if you're storing something and we get a heavy rain and
Sure.
what are your containment methods that you're proposing?
Sure, that's a great question. So the all of the work that is proposed within any of the resource areas are lined in compost sacks. We're putting compost sacks there.
What?
You need to speak up.
Compost sacks. We're going to line the whole entirety of the work area with compost sacks.
Compost sack.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
a sock. They can either use hay bales or a sock. It's material.
It's like a big round tube.
Yeah,
And
I've
you
seen
fill it
them.
with
Okay,
compost.
I know what they
Yeah.
are.
They have it at the Oak Grove Cemetery right now.
Yeah, I've seen them. I just didn't know the word.
Yeah. So it's pretty typical. It's what I've personally moved towards as opposed to straw bales in the past. They're a little easier to maintain and easily replaced.
They always call it
So-
silt sock also. Is
Yes,
another
yes,
name
silt
for it.
socks are another name for it, as well as sometimes they do put straw or hay in them as well, so.
Are you staking it at a certain interval?
It depends on the slope of the grade where the sock is being proposed. If it's flat in a parking lot, you obviously would not stake it because it's pavement underneath it.
Right.
In that situation, you build like a small berm with gravel. Or if it were in an area like a grassed area, you would be staking it. And there's a detail plan that specifies specifically where they would be staking that compost sock.
Okay, or how you're securing it so it doesn't, wash underneath
Sure,
the
yeah.
asphalt. That's one of our concerns.
Yep, yes.
So the other thing too with just that material storage, this is a largely mechanical contract too, so materials may not be typical soils that, like you're talking about, it may be pieces of equipment or
Okay.
mechanical stuff too, so.
I didn't know
Like
how
conduit
much
piping.
stockpile of soil.
Correct,
that
exactly.
You're looking at doing.
Yeah.
Because it looks like, what's your square footage that you're, excuse me, can I ask these questions, Mr. Chairman? It looks like you have a de minimis amount of square footage of asphalt that you're adding.
Yeah, so overall, it's 185 square feet of permanent impact to land subject to coastal storm flowage only. And we're obviously not counting any kind of impacts to
Right.
when you're storing the materials. That's not permanent impact, so. Yes, it's a very small amount of impacts, so.
And that's just in the section,
Just over here, see this hatching?
yep,
So it's this hatching on.
And then you have
this
some
would be the
rehabilit-
east and the west
and
side.
you're repaving,
Yes, some small parts that have broken off.
yeah.
Yeah. There's a little bit more additional work if you want me to switch, but I don't want to turn the page until everybody's comfortable with what we've talked about.
Okay.
Okay. So this is the electrical conduit work that I mentioned earlier. This is over by, there's a pedestrian walkway. Runs underneath this berm here where I believe there's railroad tracks over there.
Yes.
Runs under the railroad
Yeah, under the
tracks.
railroad tracks, there's a pedestrian walkway so that workers can access both sides of the site. And there's some conduit that's being proposed inside. So this dashed line here is the floodplain line, the 100-foot floodplain, or the land subject to coastal storm flowage line, and this is the work, this conduit piping is the work that's proposed in there, and this is all maintained lawn area. It is going to be trenched and then reseeded, so it's, again, temporary impacts.
Can you take the yellow highlighter and highlight the
Sure.
subject of what's subject to conservation? Probably would be easier for the commission to see.
It's just this area right here.
So everything on that drawing, only that is what the
Yes.
Conservation Commission's looking
And
at.
where are the
Yes.
railroad tracks?
Right on top of this berm here, right?
So, yeah, so the railroad
It's hard to, yeah, it's just a
I
little
have-
cramped.
Yeah, so these are the
It's
the
small
railroad
things you
tracks
can't
here.
see.
Yeah.
Okay.
This right here, sorry.
I'm
This
sorry,
is-
I didn't go through the chair.
This is a aerial photograph of our wastewater treatment facility. Here you have Bay Street. This is State Avenue. This is the entrance to the facility down here. So these are the railroad tracks that go directly through our facility. So the area, the pedestrian walkway comes straight through here. Just small area over
You
here.
wanna tilt it the same direction as the map? Nope.
Yes.
There
So
we go.
that's a pedestrian walkway that goes through. These are the railroad tracks. Right over in this area is the small area that's subject to conservation. And just for reference, the other area where we're adding this small amount of paving was right over here in this area. And material storage that we discussed was down over in this area.
Do you really anticipate soil being stored? It doesn't- I mean,
You said soil, but material storage.
Just contractor materials as far,
Yeah.
materials is, I think, more of a vague term in this sense, where it could be anything that the contractor needs on site, any conduit piping, whatever, equipment for the evening, or however they want to store.
I would think he might want a truckload of gravel dropped, because when he does his trenching, he's gonna wanna gravel the bottom of the trench before he, and I assume you want gravel at the bottom, conduit, gravel, and then material back on top.
Well, most of the conduits are concrete encased, but
Oh,
yeah,
concrete in case, okay.
And also
So gravel
just
on the
to,
bottom.
correct.
and also just to clarify too, one of our mitigation measures is that any materials as far as gravel or soil stockpiles would be encased in a compost sock as well.
I think it's the soil that would be of a problem in a heavy rain with the sock. Gravel, not a problem.
Correct.
Gravel doesn't move, soil does. Okay.
And then this sheet, this last sheet that we have here, just shows some minor additional work that's happening at that driveway location. This is temporary impact, and it just includes a gate replacement of an existing gate and the associated electrical work that'll be required for that gate because it'll be key card access. So, and this is, so you know, this dashed line, this dashed dot line is the land subject to coastal storm flowage 100-year floodplain line.
What's the anticipated timeline of your work?
So we're gonna have contracts need to be signed by June 30th of this year. And then it's a 720-day construction time, 2 years, 730 days, 24 months.
One question.
Any other question?
Yeah, I think it doesn't, I think you're not gonna interfere with there's been a planning grant given to look at a multi-purpose bicycle and walking trail out that way, and I'm not precisely sure, nor is anyone else, I think, of the location as it enters the treatment plant that goes along the rail. The hope is for something along the railway from the center of town to the Tiverton line. And I have ridden it several times, except of course through the treatment plant. And, are you gonna, will this interfere? That's what I'm asking.
Well, I can answer that. That's my project, so we're looking
Right,
at
that's
it.
why I
And
was
it's a
raising
conceptual
it.
design, and it's a conceptual design and layout, and
Yep,
it's generally going down the rail, but you've got to realize is that from the sewer treatment plant up is
up towards Tiverton.
no, sewer treatment plant up towards Battleship Cove where it starts is we're still intending to maintain a limited access rail
Right.
to actually improve the rail to gold medal and ultimately improve the rail service to the sewer treatment plant. So what we're looking at, we will look at through this grant is, you know, how can we do that? Where is that going to go? I think that having a rail go right through the center of the sewer treatment plant is probably an unacceptable to the sewer, Water and Sewer Commission because of the nature of that. So this conceptual design is going to be how do we, you know, what's the best route that goes around it? Is there property on the sewer treatment plant to the north or to the, you know, east or the west? How we get around this, because going straight through it is probably not going to happen because it's fenced in and it's a security issue. So our grant's going to be looking at this.
So I don't think that this project will interfere in any way.
No, because this is all internal to their site.
Right.
I don't think we've ever had the illusion, or I hope that the bike path folks don't think that there's ever been that you're going to get a bike path through the center of the sewer treatment plant.
Now, you had not anticipated that.
Right, but
And I am one of the cyclists,
yeah,
but.
and it's how we get around that but you know what options there are on the in and around the property.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions?
I would, you know, recommend a negative determination. I don't believe this triggers an NOI for the work identified here, and with the standard conditions for the silt sock and you know, and I don't think there's really any other conditions. It's a minimal, it's very minimally invasive project.
Make a motion for negative determination with standard conditions.
Yeah, make a motion for a negative determination of standard conditions.
You have a second, all in favor?
Right.
So voted.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, ladies.
Notification from Santec on behalf of the City of Fall River, submitted February 21st, 2019, regarding emergency water treatment plant pipeline maintenance between WTP and 1873 pump station at the lower end of Bedford Street. Mr. Phil?
Good evening. As most of you probably haven't heard, we've had an emergency down at our water treatment facility. We had a leak come out of a 36-inch main, the 136-inch main that leads from our treatment facility into our distribution system. That leak has been maintained. It hasn't grown in size at all, but we determined to move forward with a emergency contract to install bypass piping from our treatment facility over into the distribution system so that we could continue to send treated water from the plant into the distribution system. We've been working very diligently on doing that. The bypass is complete, it's hooked up. We've been having some issues with some of the 36-inch valves not operating properly. We're currently working on those. The plan is, we will move forward. I don't know if anybody's been out and visited the site down by the edge of the North Watuppa. It's on the Water Department property. But we do have out silt socks for erosion control within that area that we've been doing major excavations or land altering. We have had some dewatering efforts. Those have gone into our system that takes in into the interceptor drain and then goes down to the South Watuppa. This activity almost could be considered a maintenance activity, which may be exempt from conservation, but seeing that we're on the edge of the North Watuppa, we're right there next to a drinking water supply and other resources, felt it best to notify the Conservation Commission through this letter. The plan is after, once we get a handle on the work, we've just been going full force trying to get the work done with both our consultants, our own staff, and the contractor that's been on board. That we would like to follow up with a request for determination after the fact.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I got an early morning phone call from Paul one morning saying we have a problem down at sewage here at the water treatment plant, and that they have to go in an emergency. They're leaking, and I said just send us he sent me an email and then followed up a letter. And I said, got to maintain our water system, and that it's right next to the North Watuppa. And I said, if there's any contractor person that wants to maintain the integrity of the North Watuppa, it's the water treatment plant. So they're going to do everything. So they're going to do everything possible to shore it up. And as far as I know, every time that they've been digging and excavating, you've just seen what you're still figuring out that every time you dig, you find more problems.
Correct. Correct. One thing leads to another can of worms.
Yeah, they're digging and chasing, and before they submit the full RDA, they really need to figure out. Yeah, as I said, every time the scope of the project changes every time they dig in the ground.
Correct. We go from being able to shut the 36-inch main down with a couple of valves. Those valves didn't work. We had to move out, try other valves. Those valves had issues. So now we're actually doing line stops, which is a special piece of equipment that gets inserted to the main to stop the water flow so that we can cut in new valves. It just seems to be compounding. But
how old is this
we
system
can.
here?
So a section of the water main was, one section of the water main was from 1873 when the original plant was built. Another section of the water main was probably from the 1920s. That's the section that's leaking. And another section of the water main was from when the new treatment facility was built, which is 1974.
So you can see what they're chasing.
What's that total distance?
The total distance was about just under 1,800 feet that we had to run out the bypass pipe. It was two 18-inch HDPE fused pipes. So the contractor came in. We worked 24 hours a day around the clock with the contractor to be able to fuse that pipe. Took roughly 3 days to fuse the pipe. Then we had to chlorinate test it. DEP's been down to the site and has visited the site for review for water quality to ensure that the integrity of our system is upheld.
So as soon as they get the full scope, they'll be coming in with an RDA. But they've done all of the measures, all erosion control and in excess of anything we would require, but it's under an emergency.
Okay, so we can accept this on file.
Yep.
And the water department will get back to us once they find out, investigate the rest of the problem that's down there. So have a motion to continue this until we hear back from the water department.
Make a motion to continue
I'll
to
second.
back.
Second, and all in favor?
Aye.
So voted.
Thank you.
I have a letter here from, a resignation letter from Mr. Emmanuel Lee, one of our board members. It was dated February 21st, 2019. It is with great regret that I need to inform you of my resignation from the Conservation Committee. My work schedule and family commitments have become such that I cannot continue the volunteer time necessary to do my job on a committee. I'll be resigning effective February 21st, 2019. Thank you for your opportunity and best wishes to you and other members going forward. Sincerely, Manuel Lee.
And we've already informed the mayor's office that's an appointing authority of the vacancy.
Do we need to accept this?
You can accept and place it on
I
file
move we accept it with regret.
with regret. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So voted. We have the approval of our minutes for February 4th, 2000 meeting. Make a
Make a
motion?
motion approved?
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
So voted. No public input. Can I get a vote for adjournment?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
So voted. Meeting adjourned.